Yeah, nice. Hello and welcome to the Dr. Ayaz Safi podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Gulwali Passarlay, an influential Afghan who initially came to this country as a refugee and is a published author of the book titled The Lightless Sky. Here it is. Yes, indeed. Thank you. He has also participated in the TEDx talk as a speaker, and he's a human rights activist, and beyond that has conducted over 1,000 interviews with national and international TVs. Gulwali, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Gulwali, you are somebody who came to the UK as a refugee, and you came here, and when you heard about the Rwanda process of sending the asylum seekers to another country from here, what was your initial reaction to that news?
So basically, I've been campaigning and advocating for refugees' rights for the last maybe more than 10 years since the book came about, and even before that, because of my own lived experience of coming here as an unaccompanied minor, being an asylum seeker and being a refugee for the last 15 years or so. So I've been campaigning for better pathways for family reunification, for allowing asylum seekers to work, for example, ending detention. We're the only country in Europe where we detain people indefinitely. Mm-hmm. So if you come here as an asylum seeker, you could be detained indefinitely. So we had a lot of laws and policy which was very dehumanizing and criminalizing people. It was wrong. And then sadly, not only have we not made anything better, things have got worse. So with the Rwanda scheme, it's basically cash for cargo. So this came about it came about for the last many years. So the government has been trying to work on policies and laws to find ways to deter asylum seekers, to deter people, refugees coming to the UK, they call it illegal journey. It's not illegal to claim asylum because in international law, it's entrenched in international law, seeking asylum, enjoying safety in other countries, everybody's human right. Right. Because of what happened in World War II, mm-hmm. They made the Refugee Convention, 1951 Refugee Convention, Geneva Refugee Convention, which basically allows all of us from anywhere in the world to go to another country and seek asylum from persecution, because of your political belief, because of your social group, because of your religious belief. But there's a criteria. Yeah. And then, because injustice has been done to you, oppression, violence, and so on, and your fear of persecution and death and so on. But the Rwanda scheme came about was because the government, Priti Patel, if you remember, yes. the Home Secretary a few years ago, she came up with the new migration plan, and she was like, this is going to solve everything. And the politicians were calling people coming to the UK, these are a bunch of migrants, these are invading us. So they were creating this fear, unnecessary fear and hatred towards asylum seekers. I felt like for the last 17 years I've been here, there's been always an element of scapegoat. So sorry, I'm giving you long answer, but to put things into context. So we've been scapegoated. So people like me are the problem because we don't have housing, or we have issues with healthcare and so on and so forth. Rather than people making government accountable, right. They rather blame someone. And so the refugees and asylum seekers, the guys in next door or the guys who lives in a hotel are the easy target. So the Priti Patel brought in a bill called the Borders and Nationality Act. Yeah. And she said, look, if you come here irregularly or if you come here illegally, which again, illegal is quite dehumanizing as I explained. Yeah, I agree. So it's legal to claim asylum, but yes, in the UK law now it's a criminal offense to come here irregularly. So it's an irregular entry without documents, without passport, and so on and so forth. So if you come here irregularly, we will not grant you refugee status, which is normally 5 years, and then that gives you the right to family reunification, that gives you the right to go to university, get an education, get support, get benefits, and like you're a normal citizen, except you can't vote and you can't travel freely outside the UK. Right. But Priti Patel said, no, this was not going to happen to people who come here regularly. They're going to get a lesser status. There will be a two-tier system, the good refugees and bad refugees. Right. So if you come through a resettlement scheme, which is a very small percentage, then you're a good guy, you're a good family, you're a good person, will support you, will actually give you, not even refugee status, we will give you an indefinite leave to remain, right? Which normally takes 6 years or 5 years for somebody to get. And then that system was in place for some time, and then they had this thing about cases being inadmissible. So if you come through another safe country, or if you come here regularly through France and other countries, then you will be not admissible into the system. Right. You will be basically in limbo for some time, or you will be detained, and it was crazy. It made so much mess. People were granted 2 years. They were not allowed to go to university. They were not allowed to claim benefits. They had no recourse to public fund. There were so many issues. And then the good old Savannah Broadman came along. She said, oh, this is nonsense. Let's get rid of it. Why do we need two-tier system? Yeah. Why do we have this idea of deserving and undeserving? Let's make everybody undeserving. Yeah. So she says, she then tried to pass the illegal migration bill, which passed last year, 2023. Yeah. And she says, anybody who comes to the UK irregularly will have to be deported by law.
Okay.
So right now, the law of the UK is, although it breaks international law, it breaks all the conventions, so the Refugee Convention, it breaks the European Human Rights Convention, it breaks so many conventions on modern slavery and trafficking. There's literally dozens of international law it breaks. The UNHCR has warned about against it, the IOM, the UN, other agencies, organization, Amnesty International, Human Rights. Everybody says, look, this is terrible, this is wrong. The international protection system will not work without this idea of sharing responsibility and burden sharing. So we have law right now in the UK. So if you and me came to the UK as an irregular arrivals through the small boats or whatever means we came through, which was not legal according to the government, then we will have no access to asylum, because the Home Secretary has a duty right now by law to deport asylum seekers. But deport them where?
Where? That's the question.
So right now we have 50,000 people in the system, more than that. They're not even asylum seekers because they have not been they're deemed inadmissible to the system, because the law says that you cannot seek asylum if you come here irregularly. Full stop. There's nothing you could do. And then, so what do you do with these people? So there was an interview recently, discussion with the Home Office Home Office Director General at the Home Affairs Select Committee, and they were saying, so what's happening? They're like, oh, we have 45,000 people in the system. They're not asylum seekers, but we can't send them anywhere because the Rwanda scheme wasn't up and running yet, because the Supreme Court said it was unlawful, because Rwanda was not safe, and so on and so forth. But to come to your point right now, is when the Rwanda thing came about, because they wanted to use this as a deterrent, the strange thing for me was this: they were arguing Rwanda is safe, but they were also using it as a deterrent. Like, which one is it? Is it safe? I'm sure Rwanda is an amazing country, but I don't know why Rwanda is doing this. But anyway, they might be doing it for political reasons. They're doing it for also, like, they want to get legitimacy and stuff. Right now, as we speak, the Rwanda government has been supporting like insurgent groups in neighboring Congo and bombing places. And then Rwanda is supposedly a country where there was genocide 30 years ago between the two groups there. And then literally now it's an amazing country. Yes, it's an amazing country, but then it's not a deterrent.
No.
If it's a deterrent, it must be a terrible place. So the whole argument the government has, they pay 50 million pounds to Rwanda to take people, a few hundred people. So they could deter. So what happened was, in the last 15 years since I've been here, we've been getting about 30,000 asylum applications. Quite regularly, quite like stable. France have been getting 3 times of that. Germany getting 7 times. People don't discuss these things. We get a very small number of people who come to the UK and want to seek protection in asylum. But Britain's this idea that British exceptions don't go anywhere but here. So since the Rwanda, since the deterrent policies and the detention and deportation, that has doubled.
Okay.
So deterrent hasn't worked. People still come.
And
the thing that really upsets me now is this, that they say that, oh, look, our deterrent is working. People want to go to Ireland. People are afraid. People are scared. So they're putting innocent people who are vulnerable, who have fled violence, persecutions, injustices and oppression. They're happy, the government or the politicians, like, oh, great, these guys are now scared. We're putting them through fear. So what is going to happen is that we have so many people in limbo, literally over, I don't know, hundred thousands of people who are being told, I mean, they have told 20,000 people will deport you. Or they're at least targeting at least 5,000. But Rwanda say we're only accept a few hundred. We can't promise to take 40,000.
This is the thing. You mentioned earlier, for example, since the last 17 years that you've been here, you came here as a refugee.
Sure.
You were not a threat to anyone. You didn't take anybody's job.
I still don't have a job. I'm jobless.
No, but you wrote a book. You became an author of the book. You kind of spread that awareness, and your book is very inspirational, and the journey that you've been through. And I recommend anybody who's watching this to read that
Please
book.
do, yeah.
You know, and to understand what a refugee goes through. So you became an author. You studied. You've been to maybe school, college here, definitely university, and you completed your master degree as well. And now you are giving something back in a positive manner to the community here in the UK. And all of a sudden, the slogans that's being used now by the government and some other small minority of the politicians is that the refugees are bad for the country. All of that, it seems really upsetting.
Sure.
And I personally, the way I look at it, is I don't think that the Rwanda scheme will be a successful down the line, because what the government is trying to do is trying to kind of stop the problem when it happens in the UK, but it's not solving
the cause of the problem.
So if you want to stop the refugees to come to the UK, you need to understand the root causes. And so once that root causes are stopped, then the refugees will stop, because nobody wants to leave their house and their friends and families and so on.
We see people drowning in the channel. So the problem we have is that the government assumes so much. They think that this policy of deterrence, this will stop people. If the people are not deterred by the sad tragedies in the channel, recently 5 people died, were drowned, a little girl drowned. Last year we had 27 people drown. I think in the last 10 years, I think 60 something people has drowned. And then in the last 10 years in the world, 63,000 people have
and
died.
these statistics that you are now,
it's not numbers,
you are now
human beings.
Yeah, so for them, this is a statistic, this is a number, but many people, especially the general public, they do not know about these statistics because I don't think any, bigger media channels explain this. This is what happened, or this is what
the media and politicians are like basically blaming and scapegoating refugees, even though in the fact we host less than 1% of the world refugees. We have welcomed more people from Ukraine and Hong Kong in 2 years than we have welcomed for refugees in 20 years.
Yeah.
There was no issue. I mean, 500,000 British people opened their homes to the Ukrainians, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But why is that not happening for anybody else? Why aren't Ukrainians and Hong Kongers taking small boats? Because they have a safe route. So I was, last year I was in Moldova, in Chisinau, visiting a charity that I was trustee for. We have a dignity center there, and I saw the plane full of Ukrainian families. You know what they was asked? The passport, a ticket, and a piece of paper from the Home Office saying visa is not required. Right. That is not available to anybody else. As a humanitarian, as a refugee rights campaigner, I was very pleased about that. I'm not saying we should make it difficult for people.
Yeah.
But this argument is like, oh, if you're a genuine refugee, you should not be leaving the first safe country. France is a safe country. Why are you coming here? Yes, France may be a safe country, but for a lot of people it's not. If you're tear gas in Calais, if your shoes has been taken away, your tent has been burned down. Also, people have connection to the UK, people have links. And again, why should we expect the French to take everyone? France has been saying the same thing to Italy. You're a safe country. Italy has been saying to Greece. Greece has been saying to Turkey. They've been building walls and fences. And the Afghans, especially Afghans, are being humiliated, being turned back on these borders. Turkey has been saying the same thing to Iran. Absolutely. Iran has been deporting Afghans. Turkey has been deporting Afghans. So this whole point about the whole system will not work if we keep blaming other countries. Like right now, the people went to Ireland and they said the Irish said, oh, they're coming here because of Rwanda and because of the UK policy. The British government said, we will not take them back. So then why should France take the refugees back from here? That's the whole point. And the Irish is saying, look, this is a hypocrisy because you're making laws to get people to just disappear and making somebody else's problem. You're not doing anybody any favor. So it's not right that people are crossing from the Northern Ireland. There's no border really. There's people getting crossed through. And actually it's creating opportunities for smugglers. So literally, people have been charged £2,000 to get across from Belfast to Dublin. They don't know that they can take a bus or take a train. And so the government, instead of like smashing the criminal gangs and smugglers, they're creating opportunities for the smugglers. So the whole thing doesn't make sense. It's unworkable, it's cruel, it's unlawful. Again, it's not about, we're not speaking about some sort of like political ideas and policy. It's about human lives.
Absolutely.
And this makes me really sad. They think, oh, let's scare a few vulnerable people. Let's put them in limbo. So right now, what is going to happen is there's 3 ways through this legislation. You can stay in the UK. You can stay in the UK, have no legal status, be here in permanent limbo, or choose to go back to your own country, or be deported to Rwanda. Even though Rwanda will only accept a few hundred. So what are you going to do with this 50, 60, 80,000, 100,000 people?
This is one of my point, like earlier you mentioned about that there are concerns about Rwanda's human rights record, for example. And also what the UK government is kind of stating that the policy of the Rwanda will discourage the illegal migration and also will kind of disrupt people-smuggling networks, which you hinted towards.
Right now, it's doing the opposite. It's literally doing the opposite.
This is it. But do you think with both of this, that Rwanda's human, for example, the concerns about human rights record, and also the government thinking that their policy will be effective in stopping the boats and stuff, do you think with the whole system of what's happening now, will this kind of continue and will be effective in a way? Let's say in the long run, or will this kind of still people will be...
To be honest, brother, look, for me, Israel tried to send people to Rwanda and they were shot at. And there's like videos out of the Rwandan ambassador. He says, so what? The Denmark government tried to send people to Rwanda. It hasn't worked. This is the thing. Rwanda human rights record, put it to one side. Like for me, it's not about Rwanda's safety and security. Rwanda is an amazing country. Rwanda is Switzerland. Rwanda is Norway. It's still wrong to be deporting people and cargo them there because you can, because you have the money, because you have the influence. So I came to the UK, not to Rwanda. Why are you sending me against my will? So there's a thing called a non-refoulement, which is like you can't send people against their will. The international law is very clear. When people come and seek asylum, you have to give them the due process of the law and treat them fairly and justly, and not penalize them for the manner of their entry, and allow them hear their cases. I mean, like, I disagree with deportation and detention, but it's done through the system where people come in, their cases are heard, they're able to claim asylum, and then they refuse and they're detained and deported and removed. Yes, fine, okay, that could be a system. But right now, there's no way that your case could be heard. You're just literally, everybody is liable to be deported. I just kept in limbo. The government knows this doesn't work. It's unworkable. Just making life miserable for people whose life are already miserable. And that's it's heartbreaking and it makes me really angry that this is happening to people.
Do you think, Gulwali,
It's unethical. Like for me, it's not about Rwanda is safe or not safe. Rwanda is safe. You and me should go there for a holiday.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful country. It is. I've seen the images. But that's not the point.
But images are not the reality.
Sure.
You know?
Even reality would say this idea, look, think about it. Somebody, let's say somebody came to Afghanistan to seek asylum. And we said to them, look, we're going to give you refuge and asylum, but in Zimbabwe. Or we're going to give you asylum in the UK. Like this whole idea that you can ship people like cargo them like some sort of a cargo.
Absolutely. It's like an Amazon parcel.
Exactly. It's wrong. And you're doing it like this without their consent. And they came to the UK for whatever reason. You should determine, assess their cases. Then again, why should Germany take refugees 1 million? Why should France? Why should Spain? Why should Sweden, Denmark? I don't know, like Spain, Greece, every other country. There are like over 130 million refugees in the world. Over 130 million displaced people and 40 million plus or so refugees. Like, for example, this idea of the first safe country, which I mentioned. Nobody's saying to the Ukrainian, why are you leaving Poland? Poland is a safe country. Why are you leaving Moldova?
Absolutely.
Or Slovakia?
Here.
Because they understand we need to share this burden.
Absolutely. Another thing is, for example, the UK, alongside the US, when they went to Afghanistan in 2000, for example, and in 2021, when the Afghanistan government has collapsed because of the entire invasion here, the Afghan soldiers who worked with the UK government, the US government, and so on, they were left behind. The promise there was broken, and then poor people there, they were not safe in Afghanistan. Their families were not safe, and the UK government was not taking them. So what they had to do is, in order to be safe, they had to make their journey smuggled to the UK. And now, recently, I've read an article on BBC which saying that the interpreters,
everybody's a target.
with the UK, they've been they'll go to Rwanda as well. They've received a letter saying that you will be going to Rwanda, but that person has worked for the UK government. So the whole idea of, like, as you're saying, you open the door to one person or from one specific country and then close it against the other one who actually worked for you and worked with you, stood shoulder to shoulder, and now is a target in their very own country, and you're sending them to another country. It's very unethical.
The people who they brought, the evacuated people, they were Afghans. I visited hotels. They were there for 2 years.
Yes.
The government had no plan how to deal with them and support them with accommodation. They're Afghans who are stranded in Pakistan. About 20,000 Afghans are right now stranded in Pakistan.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Some of them actually have visas. They can't come here because they have no accommodation. The government have actually secretly posed the assessment of people. They said, why you come here illegally or irregularly? You should have come through legal means. The Afghan resettlement scheme, you cannot apply for it. It's like a lottery. You have to be selected and chosen somewhere. They were supposed to bring 5,000 people. And guess what? How many people they brought the first year? 4 people. The second year, 22 people. And it's crazy. So the whole thing doesn't work. And again, the House of Lords made a big deal out of telling the government to make an amendment to the bill, the illegal migration, the Rwanda safety bill, to say, look, can we exclude Afghans from this? Particularly those Afghans who work with British forces. The government's like, no, because we're going to treat everybody equally. We don't want to create a problem for ourselves, because that means then you have to assess people. Because at the moment, the government don't want to hear anybody's cases.
Right.
Because if you say, okay, you work with us, then everyone will be saying, well, I work with the forces, and then you have to assess their cases. Almost. So in recent years, a lot of Afghans go their refugee status. Literally 70% of refugees, people who claim asylum, go their refugee status. So the government knows these guys are genuine refugees. So they don't want to hear their cases. They rather want to deport them and make them somebody else's problem. And again, this whole Rwanda thing is, again, I'm telling you, it's immoral, it's unethical, it's wrong on so many different levels, that this idea that you can shift people, you can send them somewhere else and make it somebody else's problem because you can.
This is the thing. Let me ask you on this. How do you think this policy of Rwanda might affect the UK's reputation and standing on the global stage, particularly when it comes to human rights and refugee
I'm
issues?
surprised Britain still have a reputation. It's crazy because in Afghanistan, you go, oh, Britain, this, that, all the history and the empire and so on. Right now, what the UK has done, not only through this, the Brexit we had and how Britain, the people shoot themselves in the foot, and this is damaging Britain, because Britain was a place of human rights. They stand for human rights. But then the way Britain has been supporting Israel over Gaza and everything else that has been happening in the genocide, the war crimes and the ethnic cleansing. So I'm not surprised. For me, especially with the right-wing government we have, take my word for it, those of us who are listening and watching, in the general election, this will be the main issue the Conservative, the Tory party will be fighting on, saying, look, we want to stop the votes. We want to send people to Rwanda. Look, the judges are stopping us. Strasbourg's a foreign court, even though the Strasbourg court is not a foreign court, it's the Court of Human Rights, which Britain actually set up. It is part of the Council of Europe, which Britain wants to leave. The only country which have left it is Russia and Belarus. So we want to be joining Russia and Belarus. So it's crazy, this whole idea of Britain want to leave the, Savannah Braverman and a lot of some right wingers have been advocating, saying we should leave the European Human Rights Act or the European Convention on Human Rights, because like then we can send refugees anywhere we want.
Yeah.
That even wouldn't solve the problem. Even if they leave the refugee convention, people will still come. What do you do with them?
Absolutely.
So this whole point is my argument is that we need to treat people compassionately, kindly, and we need to show solidarity. We need to assist people fairly and just that's what Britain is about for me. But right now they can find resources, they can find judges, they can find empty courtrooms to hear cases of like challenges. But they can't find like it's crazy that I know people who waited 10 years being in a limbo, and this bill will further keep people in limbo, and I don't think it's going to work. But the government will use it as a to get votes, and that's the sad reality.
I think that's
they don't have any other policy.
No,
this is their policy, which is again not workable. They can't stop the board. In the Labour Party, sadly, they said we're going to stop the smugglers. You can't stop the smugglers unless you provide alternative routes, unless you provide humanitarian corridors, safe passage, or in wars, as you said, in conflicts, not participate in them. You know, the Afghans were betrayed and abandoned by the West. Afghanistan were abandoned and betrayed. The US literally, there's a video of Zalmay Khalilzad, the former British American ambassador, Afghan. He's Afghan, but he was dealing with the Taliban on behalf of the US. And there's a video of him how he literally handed Afghanistan over to them, and people are asking him everywhere at the airports and everywhere. Like this guy, he signed a deal with them in 2020, thanks to Trump. Literally to give Afghanistan over to them and treat them as a government in waiting. Right now, the Afghans have been punished. I went back to Afghanistan after 16 years in 2022, and you know what I saw? I saw the extreme level of poverty and hunger. And the West were willing to spend billions and billions on a week on war. And they're not willing to spend $5 billion to support Afghan children and women to have food, to have the basic necessity of life. There was a conference on humanitarian pledges by the UN food program or whatever. And they asked for $5 billion to support women and children and families over the winter because 24 million Afghans need food. They don't have enough to eat. Over 80%, 90% of the population don't have enough to eat. And so they only raised half of that, or pledged half of that. A week later, there was a conference for Ukraine. They were able to raise 10 billion. So the way we treat human beings, the way we treat people, America spent trillion in Afghanistan. Britain spent 50, 60 billion, literally billions and trillions to create wars and kill innocent Afghans. There's again videos and evidence of the British Special Forces killing Afghans for fun. There's videos of Australian Special Forces. And they were hiding this. So we knew about this as an Afghan. There's crimes being committed. But it's crazy how we are at this stage where they somehow got away with it. Right now, the Afghans have been punished for the decision of the West to hand Afghanistan over to the Taliban. We didn't have an election. The Afghans didn't choose this. Now, don't punish Afghans for your own decisions, your own failures.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned one point earlier regarding the UK government will use the slogan of the Rwanda in their general election. And that would be something, for example, I actually said this to somebody else as well. I said, look, if the current government actually manages to take one plane to the Rwanda, they'll definitely win the election again. Because the general public will support them. Unfortunately, because again, them being biased, they don't know what exactly is going on, but this will come to...
I think they will solve the problem. I hope they will not win the election. I mean, that's the perception. I mean, so the local election, they lost a lot of the mayors and candidates and stuff. But there's this perception because like with the Brexit, people were lied to, people were misinformed and said, so there's, Suella Braverman say her dream is to see plane breaking up. So the misery of people, the suffering of people, that's a dream for these politicians.
And unfortunately, so as a former refugee yourself, what message would you like to convey to the UK government and policymakers regarding this whole issue of Rwanda?
Sadly, if they want to solve a problem, that was the funny thing they wanted to play. They wanted to pay influencers money to stop votes. I was like, pay refugees. We will tell the people how terrible this country is. I was going to use a wrong word here, but like this.
But this country gave us a lot as well.
Yes, I'm going to come to that. I arrived to Stansted the other day from Norway, and like the airport is so dirty and terrible. Like I was in Norway, Norway, Denmark. These countries are beautiful. Right? Like the infrastructure, everything's the UK. The weather, like people come here because they have connections. They feel belong. There's like freedom of religion. There's freedom of speech. There's freedom of expression, and so on. There's like a lot of good things about this country, but the government has been trying to say, look, we need to get rid of this good stuff, the good reputation, because that's why people are coming here. We need to show we are mean. We are not welcoming. I have heard this from people saying, Gulwali, if you're welcoming to people, more will come. I mean, Britain was happy to conquer half of the world and have an empire and 25% of the world. And I know what
happened. Colonization is
civilize us. And then now the people who are now being civilized by the British Empire wants to come here, then it's an issue. So I think, of course, Britain has given us a lot, but of course it was done through. We also made an effort. We held ourselves to a high standard. I went to school, did my GCSEs without speaking much English. Then I did my A-levels. I went to Manchester Uni to do a politics degree. Went to the University of Coventry to do a master's. Yes, the system helped. People helped and support me. The system didn't. My age was disputed. My nationality was disputed by the Home Office and Social Services. It was a terrible system. It took me 5 years to get my refugee status. It took me 11 years to get my settlement.
Wow.
It took me 15 years to get my citizenship. And the Home Secretary could anytime take away my passport. I wouldn't even know it. So we have this system right now where I went to Afghanistan. I was afraid of the Taliban because they're unpredictable and so on. But I was more worried about coming back to Dubai and finding out my passport has been cancelled in Rwanda. There's so many Muslims or brown people, ethnic minorities being targeted. There's laws. We have these laws from a long time, but now it's being used.
Yes.
The issue you were speaking to somebody about Shamima Begum.
Shamima Begum, yeah, that'll come in hopefully the next
Sure.
episode.
My view on that is this: she was of course trafficked and she was groomed, and the British government knew about it. This was done through a help. There's a really good investigation out by a Canadian. This is a different topic, but Canadian officers. But it's the British state's responsibility to deal with her, not the Syrians or the Kurdish or whomever. She's a British citizen. The British state has failed her. Yes, if she's a terrorist or whatever, bring her and punish her by law. Don't deprive her from her citizenship. That doesn't make sense. It's so wrong.
She's now a stateless.
Exactly. Why you making people stateless?
She went as a child, and I spoke to a defense lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer, and he kind of gave his view, and I think that episode.
Sure. I tell people, look, it's not about what she did and what she not done. It's like this fundamental idea of citizenship. Yeah, in the UK, citizenship is not a right; it's a privilege, and it shouldn't be a privilege. Yes, my British passport now enables me to go to like 175 countries. My Afghan passport that I don't even have will take me to 25 countries that I don't even heard the name of. So exactly. So yes, but then again, I could be the same Gulwali, stranded in Calais, stranded in Bosnia, in Serbia, without this piece of paper, this booklet.
Absolutely.
So we don't treat people as people. We treat them based on their nationality, based on their passport, and that's wrong. That's fundamentally there's something like what we were born is accident of birth. And again, I tell people, look, if you welcome refugees and treat them well, they will contribute. And for me, the contribution factor will happen anyway, but we shouldn't welcome them because they contribute. Look what you are doing, look what I'm doing, look what other people are doing to try to contribute to this country.
I tell you,
they will do it anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
But treat them, do it because it's the right thing to do.
This is it. Like, my brother arrived to the UK as a refugee, my eldest brother. He worked hard. He's a tailor. He opened his own shop. He established his own business, tailor and textile. After 6 or 7 years of hard working, he then bought his family, children, and me as well. I am and my younger brother. So we came with the family as well in 2007. So I went to school because I was 14 when I came here.
I came
yeah. And then I went to college. I went to university. I got my degree. I've got my master. I got 3 more masters, and then I've also got my PhD.
Wonderful.
So I'm a senior lecturer. Thank you. I'm a senior lecturer in the university, teaching back to the home British students and also international students as being a British citizen.
We are expected to do that because we have our highest standard. We can't miss about.
This is it. But another example is my younger brother. He works with the government as a civil servant, DWP. One of my niece is a school teacher. My nephew is a computer science tech, for example. He works there in a company, and so all of that contribution went back to the country. And this is our country now, as equally as with someone who was born
whether people like it or not.
Absolutely, whether they like it or not. And for example, so the point I'm trying to raise here is when a refugees comes here, the bigger picture when we look at it, and the most of the people that comes here,
look, our friends are scientists. Look, you know, a lot of our common mutual friends.
Yeah,
they're scientists. They're
look at Wahid Aryan, for example. We talked about him earlier. Dr.
Look, Wahid Aryan. Look at Wahid Nawshir.
Yeah.
There's people who are like very high.
Yes.
And they've achieved so much, and they have given so much to this country. You know. Come on. But then again, for me, again, as I said, somebody could be working in a car wash, could work in a restaurant, they still contribute, they're still doing their best, they're paying their taxes, they're good citizens, they support their family. So, of course, I use these positive stories, but ultimately, people come here for safety and protection, of course, for opportunities also, but at the same time, right now, with this legislation that we have, everyone who comes here is criminalized, is penalized, is dehumanized. And so we're at a very, very unprecedented time. I don't use the word lightly, it's literally fascism.
Yes.
What is happening, refugees and asylum seekers being scapegoated for the problem in this country. Even if we send the 100,000 asylum seekers to Rwanda, our problem housing will not be resolved.
No.
Our issue of healthcare.
It's a minority people, like a very, very small minority.
And also, one thing people don't realize is that we're spending £8 million on the hotels.
Yeah.
You know where this money is coming from? Because the government said this could be spent on education and healthcare. That's not true. The £8 million we're spending a day on hotels, the refugees don't want to be there. The government doesn't want them to be there. They put there purposely to make us angry. So look, these guys staying in hotels. Look, I'm struggling. Why is this guy getting food in hotel's place? But actually, this hotel, they're a company making millions and millions of these people's misery, giving terrible food. The £8 million is coming from the foreign aid budget.
Right, and also if you
that money by law we should be sending to places like Yemen, like Gaza, Afghanistan, to Sudan, to wherever there's conflicts, Iraq or other places where people are struggling in South Sudan, But they're using £8 million a day on asylum seekers because they want to purposely and deliberately keep people in limbo. And now it's going to be even worse because they're putting people in badges. They're putting people in military barracks. They're putting people in places where they shouldn't be, like, because they want you, like, this whole idea of the barrack is like punishing people and getting them away to be away from the public because, like, I'm a threat and I'm some sort of a disease. The public should not see me. What is the point of putting people on a badge in Dorset, which is costing more than the hotels?
Yeah.
Just to punish people, just to send a message. What message?
But also, if you look at it, you know, the Rwanda cost, for example, scheme, sending even like one person cost a big amount of money.
They have given 300 something 50 million. It's going to cost like 100 million or something.
300 million. Fund schools with that one. Sure, education system will improve.